Alright, so I was just thinking about things, and yesterday or a couple days ago, I came to the idea that men specifically need to work. I think working for men is kind of like a nurturing or like socializing for women. Men need to like grind away at something. If you have a teenage son, and if you give him an axe and tell him to go and chop away at a tree, he'll probably be much more happy than sitting inside. Maybe not. Maybe if he's kind of bored or he's you know, has no direction in life. That's the kind of thing that guys like, or digging dirt. There's some magical thing about digging a hole or chopping a tree or like trying to break rocks. Just kind of menial, silly tasks. And of course, work can be lots of different things. It's not just physical stuff, it could be mental stuff. Uh, Organizing files, I imagine, was somewhat of a therapeutic task. That's more of an indoor thing, or maybe like writing stuff up, journaling, even organizing your computer files and all that. Some kind of, whether it's internal or external work, I think men very much specifically need some kind of work, something to do. I think men have been robbed of that to some degree in the modern age. At least younger men, maybe men around the age of about 30 to maybe 15, have definitely been robbed where it's quite difficult to get a job and work, and we're not really in that age of exploration and building. It's kind of like, just say when the pilgrims went to America, they had to build houses, start farms, they had to hunt animals, craft things out of what they could, socialize with the natives and such. There was all this stuff that needed to be done. And eventually, then, after the age of heat, things cool down rapidly, and then they start to solidify, and men are less needed. Only really in a wartime to protect the place that they live in are they needed. So we're kind of in that period where men have not been quote unquote needed. I still think they are, but societally, I guess we're just in this I guess because we're going through the whole death period, the kind of icy death period. So anyway, that's kind of like just a note for, if you're a guy, if you feel like purposeless in life, go do something, or go for a walk, start a garden, write a book, make a music album. I remember that's what I did. When I was young, the first time I got into music, I loved it. I just play the guitar for ages, or make digital music for ages, get kind of obsessed with these things, and it's because it was fine. I finally had something to do that felt like meaningful. But yeah, if you don't have work, it deprives you of money and resources, which I think is one reason why men nowadays, we don't really have resources or money. A lot of young men are poor, incredibly poor, living in their parents' homes. A lot of them don't have jobs. When a lot of my old past friends weren't able to really get a job. Maybe 1 in 5 could. That was about the ratio, but that's about it. It was rough. Anyway, another topic is, I was thinking, I remember when I played a video game like maybe 2, 3 years ago with a friend, and we played, every day, and it was pretty fun. But I, of course, I still had things to do. I had a lot of, around that period, I was still doing tons of, you know, artwork and business work and all kinds of things, right? So I really didn't, like, I maybe had like an hour or two to spare, which I did, for a few weeks, and it was good. But I noticed this a lot when talking to, the past friends that I had, that they would spend their days playing games, or just dicking about on the internet, and that's just what they would do in like passive activities or passive active activities like game. Which, I think games are a simulation of work for men. That's why they love them. Similarly, um, books are kind of like a simulation of socializing and other things for women, or social media, I guess. It's kind of like a simulation of having a community and society, again, for women. So people get addicted to these things. But what I would notice is that, in my off time when I was playing games with this friend, I would be doing things. I would be, I don't know, drawing or learning something or whatever. And it's not to say he didn't do any of that as well, but I was, very focused on it. That was kind of more my main thing. While other friends' main thing was more like playing a game. And years go by, and what happens? Well, the people who play games, that's just what they do. They continue to do, while I kept growing my skills, and I moved into a different tier, I guess you could say, of creative ability, intellectual ability, life, etc. And yeah, that's kind of how it works. Is if you put time towards something every day, you will just get better at it, from doing it. And people will be different. I mean, or people will look different eventually, but you won't really have as many interests. It's like, you'll kind of think, how do you do this every day? How do you just keep like wasting time? Of course, this isn't against games. I think games are great. I love them. I think, books and all kinds of entertainment, music, whatever, it's great. And I think it's a healthy part of, life. I think people who don't have entertainment, it's, kind of can be sad if they're just working all the time. But if it's all you do, then it's not good. Now, I think the reason why a lot of people are like lulled into this sense of fake security, and then let themselves just spend all their time doing nothing of much worth, is because of kind of like the engine of modern society, the boomer culture of just going to school and getting a job, and then the kind of later culture of like going to university, and then you think you're gonna get a job, has hypnotized people into thinking that this is actually how it is. Now, it didn't work that way for me. I never went to university personally, and it was incredibly difficult to find any kind of work. I've worked maybe several different jobs, not for very long. One I worked for maybe like 2 years, but I only got like one shift every, couple months, really. So, I've always found it incredibly difficult to find any kind of work. Society didn't work for me when I was young, in the way that, your parents just tell you, just go get a job, just go apply here. It doesn't work. Or they might tell you, go to university or whatever and then get a job with that degree. Well, it doesn't work, and it doesn't work anymore. It may have worked 20 years ago, but it certainly didn't work 10 years ago, I'll tell you that. So things have changed, and I think people are still stuck in this daydream, this delusion. I think university and any kind of like schooling or any kind of thing which takes you out of like real society and just lets you like vegetate in a semi-society environment, like again, like university, is a way to keep people hypnotized so they don't have to deal with reality. Now, what happens in reality is that when they try to find a job, they realize how lesser they are. I notice like how compared to the society, I didn't really have any societal power. If you can't get a job in society, you don't have much societal power at all. If anything, you have none. So really, it just goes to show how like weak, I guess you could say, societally, a lot of the Gen Z people and even millennials are, and how society doesn't really care for those people anymore. But anyway, so these people are kind of lulled into that fake sense of security, especially if they have a job. I think the worst thing can be when life works for people, when you follow the path of the generic kind of normie path of like go to school, go to uni, get a job, especially if you have like a successful marriage and kids, because eventually what happens to a lot of those people, unless they are quite intelligent and developed souls, is that eventually things stop working for them. Eventually they get old or sicker, or they start having problems in life or in their relationships or with their children. They probably push their children to go to school and they hate school. I hated school, at least. It was horrible. I was always a good kid and a good student, but I hated it so much. And then their children hate them because of that. These are the unlucky, lucky ones because they never suffer. It's more the people who suffer when they're early that reap the rewards later if they are able to survive. There's an interesting topic that Professor Dutton goes over. Edward Dutton, I believe, is his name. He's on YouTube. He's great. About how it's about premature babies and also about sick children. Now, I was very sick when I was younger. I still, am still trying to strengthen myself and get to a good point. But I was very sick, and a lot of sometimes if you're a sick child or a premature child, or you have some kind of significant childhood trauma or weakness or something that has detrimented you heavily as a child, now I would say 90% of these people fail. They probably become mentally ill, physically ill, drug addicts. If they're lucky, they get welfare. If they're not, they're homeless. I would assume 90% of these, screwed up people suffer and just fall to the bottom of society to form the pavement of which other people walk on. But if you are the 10% that can work your way through hell, literal hell. And I saw that when I was waiting for an order while I was working. I was picking up an order at a fast food restaurant, and I looked at one of the girls working there who was stressed, and they were all working quickly, and everyone was trying to get their orders. and it was just chaotic energy. And I realized at that point that we were all in hell. If you work in a lower gen job, you were in hell. If you were homeless, if you were on welfare, you were in hell. These are all just different states of hell. If you can get through hell, then you can become a great person, a genius. Quite simply because you understand more. Suffering expands your ability to expands your intelligence to some extent. It can expand your strength only once you have healed. It's just like in that manga, The Breaker, the Korean one, which I recommend you read if you like martial arts. The Breaker, it's called. There's a number 2. Excuse me. There's a girl in The Breaker. I think she's about 15, and she looks about 9 years old because she has a blood circulation issue. Now, the main character also has a blood circulation issue. And the idea in here, which is actually a real idea, is that those who have a blood circulation issue, essentially just a chi circulation as well, energy circulation issue, are basically detrimented, and they are weak and bad at pretty much everything. And then it's going to take like a lot of training until you're about 30 years old to unlock these issues, which is quite literally true. That is what I'm finding. If you grew up weak, it's going to take you till around 30 to fully heal and fix yourself. And the girl has like 9 blocks. They say 9 blocks in the circulation. But what happens to these people who, because most of them die when they're like 20 or something, they say, if they make it to that age. But what happens if they unlock all of the circulation blockages is that they become stronger than everyone else. That's what happens. If you're able to overcome weaknesses, you become stronger than everyone else, because they didn't have to overcome that. They found love probably in high school. They found a job right after, or in high school, or after university. They always, they were never horribly stressed. They probably grew up in a pretty rich family. These people, they never learned to suffer. Now, again, as I said, about 90% of people who grow up suffering probably grow up to continue to suffer. But if you put in the work, you will be rewarded. That's what I find. And you will feel it. You will know how to feel it. You will understand every day that you put in a bit more work, you get a bit better. And you notice that. You notice slowly. And eventually you'll start to overtake people, or you'll start to get closer to them. And other people will start to get scared. People who haven't suffered, they will get scared of you. And they will try to put you down and try to insult you and try to push you down as much as they can, because they know you are catching up. And eventually you will be better than them. This terrifies people. It terrifies people to realize that they could do this too. That instead of playing video games every day for every hour, that they could be putting work towards the goals that they had. That maybe, just maybe, there isn't a job waiting for them after university. Or maybe society isn't as easy as they thought, to work and to do all this stuff. And that they have to go through that suffering as well. And maybe that's where they suffer and where they learn and grow. Or maybe they're blessed by luck and none of this even happens. Who knows? Some people, are just that lucky. But either way, I figure that's just a little life experience to tell you how things work. Ultimately, I guess it's what you put in, the effort you put into things. You will learn those things and such, and you will get better at them. But if you never do, well, you'll never figure out what you could have been and what you could have done. So anyway, I'll leave it with that. I hope you enjoyed. Check the links in the description if you want social and commercial stuff. If you want to email me, talk to me, whatever, or you want to buy my stuff that I have. And of course, have a nice day.